Boom. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So it's time to reap those sweet, sweet profits from your Pokemon collecting and investing journey. Facebook Marketplace, TCGplayer, eBay, where are you going to sell? I want to talk about a few things, a few traps that people fall into, and give you a couple tips and tricks on how to liquidate some or all of your collection today on PokeMarketLab. All right, let's get into it. Yes, we're talking liquidity today. Before we get too deep here, hit that sub button below. If you're serious about this hobby, you got to follow the channel, hit that sub button, hit that like button, turn notifications on, leave a comment section below, and check out Sleeved TCG, your one-stop shop for tips, tricks, and in-stock notifications so you can have a better chance of getting product at MSRP. Sleeved TCG, link in the description below. Liquidity. The reason I'm talking about this today is I've been liquidating some of my collection, just freeing up a few things for a couple life events here. And, you know, I have quite a bit of experience selling product in the past. This is a bit of a different market. This is definitely a different market. It's a hot market, right? And you're up big. All of us, if you've been doing this for a while, are up pretty big from a percentage standpoint. So I want to talk about some traps that people fall into when they're going to liquidate their collection. The first thing I want to talk about is, you know, there's many different ways that people track and collect their, track their collection and investments. One of them being the collector app, right? And that's fantastic, but I think people get so stuck on how much up they are from a dollar standpoint. And I want to be clear, you're going to take a haircut when you go to the market. You're not going to get that same exact amount of money. So if you're Evolving Skies booster boxes, whatever it's listed for, if it's showing up as $2,500 market price on TCGplayer, there's a direct correlation between how fast you want to move that product and what you're actually going to get. And then you got to take into account fees. And everyone thinks it's a free lunch on fees. Like, I'm just going to go to Facebook Marketplace, sell it there. It's cash in hand. Yeah, it's not that easy. It's not quite that easy. The other thing I want to talk about too is, you know, the bigger your collection is, the higher value it is, or the higher value of products, right? We talked about Evolving Skies. When you get into a certain bracket, the number of buyers, potential buyers you have shrinks. It gets smaller, right? So if I want to sell some 151 bundles versus an Evolving Skies booster box, there's just a different number of buyers out there, right? And you got to reach those buyers, right? Depending on the platform you're looking at. So keep that in mind. So, you know, people talk about, I want to get rid of this whole collection. I'm looking for a buyer for this big collection. That's really hard to do. You're not going to necessarily find those people just hanging around on Facebook Marketplace. You're certainly not going to do that on TCGplayer. There's a lot of money involved. A lot of people use consignment services. There are some out there. I'm not going to name any names. You can do some quick research. There are plenty out there. Make sure they obviously have references. They're going to take some of that profit to hook you up with some big buyers, right? So that's their niche is they have contacts with people. They kind of work their way up and found people, whales, so to speak, right? That have a ton of money that are looking for collections, but you're not going to sell at that market price. You're going to take probably a 15 to 20% cut versus market. And again, there's a direct correlation with how quickly you want to move that product. If you want to find that right buyer, if you want to find someone, maybe get a couple buyers lined up where they can kind of bid on each other a little bit, right? It's all going to come down to how fast you want to move the product. That's true for regular individual items too. So if I want to go up, this market's really good for individual boxes. I can go up, I can put a Lost Origin booster box up today, probably sell it at market price or very close to it within 24 to 48 hours, which is actually pretty quick. So it's certainly in the seller's favor right now as far as that's concerned. But obviously if you scale that methodology up individual boxes to an entire collection, yeah, it's going to take some time to move. And it depends on what product it is, right? The hotter the product, the better. I mean, just because of price, you know, you start going back to Sun and Moon and XY era, yeah, those booster box prices are high. Your pool of buyers is way smaller. It's just way smaller. So again, you're going to have to find a buyer. You're just going to have less buyers than you're going to have for, again, an Evolving Skies booster box, right? So just things to keep in mind. In my recent experience, you know, talking about which platform to sell on, I actually do prefer TCGplayer and eBay. And before you come at me about the fees, I tried hard on Facebook Marketplace to liquidate product, and it was a giant pain in the ass. This could be my location. I don't think it is. It could be contributed by my location. It was such a pain in the ass to try to coordinate with people. And again, I have sold on Facebook Marketplace before, so I'm not a complete newbie, but You know, if you're trying to meet up locally, you're trying to avoid shipping, which again, you're going to incur fees on again on Facebook Marketplace if you do so. So why not just sell on TCGplayer or eBay? You're going to have to list at a certain price. You're going to get lowballed. You're going to get messaged all day about, hey, will you take this instead? Will you take this instead? So you're constantly dealing with that. You're constantly just either ignoring, just checking, right? It's demanding your time or haggling with people. And then you get to the point where you actually agree upon a price, and now you need to negotiate a time and place to meet up, which is going to take time out of your day versus just taking that booster box, that product, whatever it is, putting it in a box, slapping a label on it, and putting it in your mailbox or bringing it to the post office. You should bring it to the post office. Big difference here. I don't think people think about that. I think they think they're looking at the benefit, which I don't think the benefit outweighs the other platforms' fees as much as people think. I think people are still looking for a deal. There's very few products I found on Facebook Marketplace that I got anywhere. I didn't get any bites at that market price. I had to negotiate lower to even get them to agree to meet up. So regardless of what the product was, it didn't matter how hot it was. So I think, again, people think it's a free lunch. I think I honestly don't think it's worth my time. Something I don't think people talk about, there's risk. When you're meeting up with someone in person, there's physical risk, a tiny amount of physical risk, and you can mitigate that. Make sure you're meeting in a public place. You can actually do it, even right outside a police station. Most police stations have a couple marked spots for people to actually do online transactions. There's some risk there. It's a non-zero amount of risk. There's no physical risk to you or your property. Well, there's risk. There's no physical risk selling on eBay or TCGplayer. A lot of people knock TCGplayer and eBay because of those fees, and that's true, but they're predictable. So my model that I use when I'm actually tracking, and I still got to do a video on this, how I actually track via spreadsheet all my product. So what I do when I'm actually looking at the profit margin on a product, I actually subtract out shipping and TCGplayer fees. You can calculate all that stuff ahead of time. So I'm looking, that margin I see is the actual margin when everything is said and done, which is awesome. So that way I'm actually, I'm kind of ahead of the game in terms of what I'm actually going to get from a profit standpoint. I want it all baked in. So that's what's great about doing it yourself. You can make whatever formula you want in there. And a lot of people are like, well, it's a lot of hassle selling on TCGplayer and eBay. Returned items, damaged items. Yeah, it is. But I can tell you the vast amount of stuff that I've sold on TCGplayer and eBay, that's where most of my stuff has gone. And I've had very few issues. The issues I've had were very clear cut. eBay stepped in, TCGplayer stepped in, had my back. Just idiots just trying to, game the system. So I can just move the product so much faster with less hassle on those platforms. I don't have to deal with scheduling. I post the stuff up. I can adjust pricing quickly. I can leave it up for a period of time. I just don't have, there's just less management on my end. And again, I can tell you, I wish I tracked the data on how much I've actually sold on this, but it's tens of thousands of dollars. We'll put it that way. Very, very few issues. The stuff sells incredibly quickly. You have a saturated market looking at that one product, right? You're looking at TCGplayer. There's no photos. It's literally based on price. I can adjust that price to move it quicker, right? Again, direct correlation between the price and how quickly it's going to sell. I can do my labels and everything right there. It's really easy. I think my recent experience in Facebook Marketplace was it is not even close to being worth my time. So it really comes down to being realistic about how much you're actually going to make. It's going to be, if you're up big, you're up big. That's great. Don't be critical on yourself for, taking a hit on the profit. You're always going to take a hit on the profit versus the market price that you're seeing. It's going to be in fees, or it's going to be people want a deal. It's one or the other. There's no free lunch. It's just, hey, if it's, Lost Origin booster box at $800 market price, you're not going to get that in your pocket at the end of the day. You're going to get hit from fees or discount. And that's why I prefer to track everything in Excel, because I can see everything. Again, I can adjust all my pricing and everything like that. Or adjust my formula, I should say, and really dial in, hey, this is, and kind of create a trigger and say, hey, this is the percentage margin I want before I sell it. And when it hits that mark, it highlights for me, and I can make the decision to sell at that point. I think people get very excited about the returns on their product. And I think that the exciting part is that upfront, it's that catch. Oh, I got a booster box for cheap. I got it. It's my baby. I have it here. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I'm going to admire it. There's other things to think about. There's that off ramp. It's not a reason not to do it. It's just, again, I don't think people stop and realize that. I think people get disappointed when they go to liquidate and it's not quite as much as what they thought. So just keep that in mind. There's some other avenues too. I think the more you get involved with the community, there are local groups, sell groups on Facebook, which I think are actually really nice. And if you have enough references, you do enough work in those channels on Facebook with those people and gain those references, those become probably the best way to sell on Facebook, because you're dealing with people who are doing this as a hobby. They're essentially professionals at it. And there's some that have a reputation in terms of really having the money, like they just do business. Like they're serious about this. They're not going to screw you around. You know, you can't screw them around at the same time. You gotta, you know, make sure you take care of their time and you're not crapping all over their time. But that to me is probably where the magic is. And that's probably where more of the whales are sitting. That's where the money is sitting. That's where but you're going to have to come to the table. They're not going to, but you know, you're just not going to find buyers for one or two, you know, 151 bundles. It's people who are looking to again, spend some money, but you're still going to take a discount. You're going to take a haircut on the price versus the sell price versus the market price. But I think that's probably the way to go. And that's my story on liquidity. I think we're going to do a bigger video in the future about kind of a 101 video on how to actually go about this. And actually do, you know, liquidate pieces or parts of your collection, what methodology you can use to do that. When do you determine if it's time to liquidate or not, whether that's a life event or you're trying to hit a certain margin or you're trying to, you know, get some more cash so you can make some additional purchases, all those kind of things. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. You can always hit me up at PokeMarketLab@gmail.com if you want to ask any more long-form questions, have more long-form conversation. And again, would appreciate your subscription. And with that, we're going to see you on the next one, PokeMarket Lab.